Alright, so it's time for another episode of The Basics. Number 2, we're going to go into a cat stance. Now, a cat stance is called that for a lot of different reasons I'm not really going to go into because, quite frankly, this stance is for kicking. This stance is for maneuvers where you need one leg to have full stabilization on your weight or practically all stabilization on one leg so that the other leg can kick or stomp or do whatever it needs to do. It's more or less a transition stance, and the reason behind its name, most of the reasons are kind of silly, and I'm not going to go into it. If you really are that interested, just let me know in the comments. I can send some text links on the subject. But as far as weight distribution, we really didn't discuss any of that on a horse stance because we didn't need to. It's the host stance, the first stance that every other stance comes from. The weight distribution is 50-50. This one, it's a little different. This one, it's 90-10. 90% of your weight is going on one leg, 10% is really just for balance on the other one. More or less, it's going to be off and running, doing whatever it's doing, kicking, stomping, tripping, sweeping, what have you. So as far as tailoring the stance, we're going to work this from the left foot being the stabilized foot with all the weight on it, or most of it, and the right is going to be the one doing all the work, kicking, what have you. So, we're going to do this from an attention stance because while I don't necessarily like attention stances, with your heels together, feet at a 45-degree angle pointing apart, it works good as a transition into what we're going to be talking about. So, leave your left foot at a 45-degree angle. Where your heels meet, pretend there's a straight line going up in front of you. So your right is going to go on that line as far as just right next to it with your toe. It's going to be going away in a straight line. And you're going to sink your weight on that left foot, the front foot. It's going to have maybe 10% of your weight. And it's going to be about a foot length ahead of the back one. So your heel should line up with that first, or your lead toe. It shouldn't be any further than that, really, because it's going to create a bit of a problem with not only weight distribution, but execution of whatever you're trying to do. And it shouldn't be any closer to that because it's going to bind your feet up, even if it is a straight line going away from it on your center line, which we'll discuss center line later on. But either way, that's how you tailor the stance to yourself, and that's really, in the end, the cat stance. There's a 90-degree cat stance where your back foot actually goes as at a 90-degree angle, kind of like that, but nobody ever hardly uses it, and it's kind of an awkward stance for your knee anyway. In the end, what you're going to predominantly see is the 45-degree cat stance. Now, we're going into this stance because the next self-defense technique that we're going to teach is captured twigs, and it involves a cat stance and a stomp, which we're going to get into later. So there you have it. Episode 2 of The Basics. Later on.